Good evening. I'd like to call to order this special meeting, organization of the board, on Monday, May 15th, 2023, at the Round Lake High School Library at 6:53 p.m. If I can get started first with a roll call of the members.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here.
Miss Lee?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mrs. Larson?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. McKinley?
Here.
Mr. De Vera?
Here. All right, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up on this agenda will be to appoint a president pro tem. If I can get a motion to appoint a president pro tem.
So moved.
Mr. Francisco.
Got it. We name a yeah.
Motion for Mr. Francisco.
Second.
Get Miss Lee a second.
Second.
Yeah. Motion by Miss Larson, seconded by Miss Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
All right, and we have a president pro tem. And first up after that is review of the Lake County Election Authority's canvass of the votes for the April 4th, 2023 consolidated election. The election did have all four of our members who were on our prior board ran and were reelected to their seats for another 4-year term. So next up then would be to administer the oath of office. Do you want to stand in the middle? How do we want to do the oath? That I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Round Lake Area Schools Community Unit School District 116 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability.
I, Stephen Lincoln, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Round Lake Area Schools, Community Unit School District 116, in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability.
I further swear or affirm that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I further swear or affirm that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be only made by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
I shall abide by the majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulative goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Round Lake Area Schools Community Unit School District 116.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Round Lake Area Schools Community Unit District 116.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound and organizational framework.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community schools to advance the vision for Round Lake Area Schools.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community schools to advance the vision for Round Lake Area Schools.
And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district towards fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Congratulations and thank you for your service. Welcome to the All right, next up, it will be the nomination of candidates for officer positions. These are all 2-year terms. So first up would be nominations are now in order for the office of president.
I nominate Michael Francisco.
I second.
Are there any additional nominations for the office of president? All right, Michael Francisco is nominated. Hearing no additional nominations for the office of president, the nominations for the office of president are closed. Michael Francisco being the only candidate nominated for the office of president, the chair hereby declares him elected by acclamation and directs the secretary to so record in the minutes. Nominations are now in order for the office of vice president.
I nominate Peg Larson.
Second.
Peg Larson is nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of vice president? Hearing no further nominations, the nominations for the office of Vice President are closed. Peg Larson, being the only candidate nominated for the office of Vice President, the chair hereby declares her elected by acclamation and directs the secretary to so record in the minutes. Next up, we have the election of the secretary. Nominations are now in order for the office of secretary.
I nominate Annette McGinley.
Second.
Annette Negretti McGinley has been nominated for the office of secretary. Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? Negretti McGinley being the only candidate nominated for the office of secretary, the chair hereby declares her elected by acclamation and directs the secretary to so record in the minutes. Thank you. All right, next up we have new business, adoption of the existing board policies. Can I get a motion to adopt existing board policies?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVera, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
And motion carries. Next up, we have the approval of the date, time, and location for the regular board meetings as published.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVera, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
And motion carries, which now brings us to opportunities for public comment. As always, members of the public are invited to address the board. I don't have my script right in front of me, so I apologize for that. Guys, give me just one quick second. I'll get to my script. Sorry. Members of the public may participate in public comment during board meetings by attending in person or by submitting electronic public comment. Please note the speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Electronic public comments will be accepted up until noon on the day of a regularly scheduled board meeting. This was not a regularly scheduled board meeting. Do we have any public comment?
Go ahead and hold the mic down. There's a red button on it. You want to hold it in while you're speaking.
Now you can hear me. Thank you. I have to pull up on my phone what I wanted to talk about, though, because I'm at the age of forgetting everything. I'm here as a longtime parent of children in the district and a longtime grandparent of students in the district. I no longer have anybody specifically in the district, which is what allows me, I feel, to be able to talk now. I have a grandson who has just graduated, and from elementary school on had been bullied in school. This has been a huge, huge issue in his life. It started when he was at RLAS. We were not aware of it, though. When he moved on to the middle school, we started to see warning signs. He, sorry, this is not easy to talk about. He was being bullied by students and staff. It started out as, we believe, as students. To this day, he won't name names. But we believe it started with students. And then he developed what is called a stress sweat. And he's a big guy. And he started sweating a lot in class because of the stress that he was under. And then the teachers started calling him out on it and telling him to go to the nurse to be released to go home. He was sent home on a regular basis, told to shower and come back, which of course he couldn't do. He had already been made a fool of. And this went on day after day after day. With bullying being so out of control in all schools, all districts, all states, everywhere. But living in this area, my daughter and I feel that it's very important to make known, everybody knows there's bullies. But we want to make sure that you are so aware of how bullied these children are. And it's not just by the mean kid in the class. And this is still going on at Round Lake Middle School. We know of 3 cases right now where the student is being bullied by other students and by staff. We also know of a kindergartner who's afraid to go to school because he's being bullied. It shouldn't be happening. The suicide rate for girls 10 to 14 years old is 6%. 15 to 19-year-old girls, it's 27%. That's over 1 out of 100.
And just so you know, you're at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, so you're 30 seconds.
Okay,
over
so
your
I'll
time
finish
limit.
up.
I want to hear what she has to say.
Please finish up, thank you.
Boys 10 to 14, their rate is 2%. 15 to 19 is 9%, which shows that girls' self-esteem is much lower at that age. 27% of adolescents have had thoughts of self-harm. 27%. 15% have acted on at least one significant event. My grandson was not offered any programs to support what was going on. He refused to attend school. He didn't feel safe in school. My daughter could not force him to go to school. And then the circle comes back around, and now she's bullied by the district because she's not forcing him into school, so she's being threatened with truancy for him. And the circle keeps going, and she keeps pushing him, and now he's suicidal. He was hospitalized twice. It's not the solution. I don't have a solution. I pray you find one. I pray you start at the very lowest grades and work your way up. But none of the kids should be missed. The other thing, he was eventually put in the gold program, and as I said, he did graduate. But he wasn't offered the gold program until his mom and he came to the school and told them that he was dropping out. Then they had a program for him. We understand that the gold program is usually used for expelled, suspended, and that sort of student, which means that we're taking care of them, but not the bullied kids. But the expelled and etc. are probably bullied or bullies that got them there. My nephew, who attended Round Lake Middle School when it was very young, he had his father was dying of cancer, and he did pass when my nephew was 15. He was told by a staff member at the middle school, everybody dies, it's time to move on. And it's not okay. So like I said, I don't have solutions. I'm praying for you guys to come up with solutions, and I know that puts a lot on you. But things have got to be talked about and figured out. You cannot just keep getting kind of pushed to the side and saying, well, we talk about bullies, because it's not enough. And I thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any additional public comment? Hearing none, we will now call to adjournment at 7:15 p.m. this special meeting organization of the board for Board of Round Lake 116. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Round Lake Area School District Board of Education 116 here in the Round Lake High School Media Center at 7:15 p.m. If I can get started with a roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here.
Miss Lee? Here. Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mrs. Larson?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Tavera?
Here.
All right, and first up on this one again is a second Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up would be an approval of the meeting agenda. The meeting agenda we have in front of us. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Larson, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
And we have an approved meeting agenda. And first up on that is special recognition and presentations. And that would be our athletic director, Mr. Karolzak, with our March Athletes of the Month.
I believe we have an athlete who's literally scrambling, trying to get here. Is that correct, Mr. Karolzak?
That is correct,
So
yeah.
I'm not sure if, I think they are coming, and if we could do maybe one, and then just when they show up, if we could, if the board would be willing to do
So I will
that.
just back up all those words, and we'll skip to we'll go to the first communications to the board, and just let us know when your athletes are here, and we will get that rolling. So then, upon further review, we will go to the organic life presentation, and I believe that's Dr. Kibbitz.
So Pam, we're gonna
Okay, so
get to
more
the athletes.
more backup. We'll go. So then first up again will be our athletic director, Mr. Karolzak.
Hi, everybody. Long time no see. It is my honor and privilege to recognize our March Athletes of the Month. First, from our girls soccer program, we have Bella Perry, and to recognize Bella is head coach Victor Rico.
Hello. Bella. This is March. So March is the beginning of our season. Our first month, which is the crucial month, right? The beginning, the foundation. And as a team, we worked a lot. We worked very hard in the off season, and Bella was right there leading the way. I always like to talk about the off season because that's when the real work gets put in, and Bella has done everything in her hands to be ready for this season. High level tournaments, gym, exercise, footwork, everything possible she did, and her season showed. Bottom line, the month of March, our team didn't start out so great. We were very excited, but it didn't follow. It didn't translate to the field. We're still young. We're still learning. But literally in Bella's back, like, we were able to hang in there. She was defending. She was attacking. I always say I play with 12 players because Bella plays for 2. She runs nonstop, and I'm so happy to have her on the team. I want to point out one play that Bella did because it sums everything up. And I've never done this, but I just think it sounds way better. I'm gonna translate it to football. This play that she did, it was her first game too. So just picture us at the half field at the 50. Bella's a quarterback. She hands the ball to the running back. The running back fumbled the ball, and it was stolen by the other team. The other team picks it up and is running to get a touchdown. Bella's the quarterback. She runs down the other team, and the other player was literally in the end zone. She was about to kick the ball in at the goal, and right as she was about to kick it, Bella steals the ball from behind. She ran from the 50, chasing this girl down, and stole the ball right as she was about to kick it. Without hesitation, takes one step forward and hits a bomb of a pass to the far line. It takes one bounce. Her partner in crime, Ari, takes one cut, then has a one-on-one with the goalie, and she scores. So Bella, in the same play, she ran down the other player, stole the ball, stopped the goal from happening, and assisted a goal for us. That is Bella in a play. So bottom line, I can't top that. Bella, we're so happy to have you on the team. We're so appreciative of your hard work, and you deserve this and much more.
Our male athlete of the month for March from the baseball team is Ben Bleem, and here to recognize and honor Ben, tell us a little bit about his accomplishments is head baseball coach Ed Adamson.
So we have Ben Bleem here. He's been up here before as a freshman, and I remember saying we expect good things from him in the future. Well, he's a junior now, and it's continuing. So for March, I'll just say this. Anytime Ben's on the mound, we have a chance to win. Whether it's striking out 15 hitters, just giving us a chance today. Tough one today, but we had a chance. So every time he's on the mound, he works fast. I know we got a chance. He's a leader. Doesn't say a lot. Leads more by example. Just been a pleasure to have. And he's only a junior, so I expect even better things next year. There's so many more things I could say about Ben. I know he doesn't like staying up here in the light. So he doesn't like being in the forefront. So he's just someone who does the job right, day in, day out. Someone you can count on. He's going to do great things in his life. He's going to represent the Panthers for life. So good job, Ben.
All right, next up, hopefully if I'm right this time, will be the Organic Life presentation. So would that be Dr. Kibbins this time? Yay!
Okay. Before we transition into the Organic Life presentation, there's some people I just want to introduce to you, because behind the scenes, as we look at this presentation, it's really much more than a contract with a vendor. One of the Board of Education's many responsibilities is to approve contracts with vendors, and our partnership with Organic Life is really expanded into being really part of the Round Lake family, which you'll see a little bit more in some of the work that they've done. The opportunity to share the third presentation of 3 with you really highlights the work that we've done working with students specifically, and really have an opportunity to showcase not only what we do here in Round Lake, but beyond Round Lake at the state level. So at this point, I'd like to introduce the individuals that were really behind and supporting the work that you will see here tonight. Eric Harlinsky, Vice President, Organic Life. Jose Gutierrez, Vice President, Organic Life. Melissa, birthday girl today, Bungie. 2 years ago, she spent her birthday here at prom when we did prom on site, so now it's at a board meeting. So she's the Round Lake girl and an alum, by the way. We also have a student guest speaker, Carolina Vilches, who will be sharing some feedback. And then our 2 teachers from Spain that stepped up to the plate to really support our team nutrition, Ricard Figueroa Corbera and Maria Hill Montalban are here this evening. And we're most appreciative for not only for their work in the classroom, but their extension beyond that. As I said before, this showcase is really much beyond the numbers of the contractual agreement. It's truly the extension of the Round Lake family, not only caring for our students, but also caring for our community. So without any further ado, Erica.
Me okay? There we go. Good evening, everybody. Okay, I'd like to begin, as always, with the participation of breakfast and lunch and all the meals that we provide to the students here at Round Lake School District 116. Here you can see it's broken down. The participation of breakfast continues to increase. It's broken down by school from January till April. And as you could see, like I mentioned before, the numbers continue to go up, which is great. Participation of lunch also continues to go up. We had that one exception in April with the high school. They had testing for a few days, so we didn't have regular meal service that day. We provided sack lunches for the students, so there's a little dip right there. And the total breakfast and lunch meal served from August through April is an astounding 895,551 breakfast and lunch meals combined. And we continue to provide snacks for the EEC. And as you can see, from August through April, we've served 30,978 snacks. Supper continues to go on, and we started the program this year, and it's been pretty incredible. From November through April, we've served 20,592 suppers to students staying after school. We implemented the smoothie program, as we mentioned at the last meeting, and between January through April, we've served 5,200 smoothies. That continues at Round Lake Middle, McGee, and high school once a week for breakfast. And this is the fun part. So, like Dr. Kibbens mentioned, in addition to providing meals to the students, we like to do fun things with the students and like to be involved in any way we can. This was really nice to bring back strawberry milk for the students. We haven't had it for a few years. The kids absolutely love it. Because of COVID, they stopped making it for a while, so we brought that back, luckily, on Valentine's Day, and it was a nice treat for the kids. It was fun. Everybody got strawberry milk that day. Another really fun, cool event that we participated in was with the Midwest Dairy event. The NFL Fuel Up to Play 60 provided a grant to the girls flag football earlier this year in February. And we were able to provide smoothies, milk, and fresh fruit to the students and also to the parents at the event. And you could see the guest speaker that Fuel Up to Play 60 had was the Chicago Bears, David Montgomery. So that was really neat. We continued the pizza challenge this year in February for National Pizza Month, and that was a really fun event too. It was in February. Before we get into that, though, we did host a focus group with the students, primarily middle school and McGee students, and we talked about just a little bit about the National School Lunch Program, the USDA guidelines, what goes into a meal, things that they like to see, things that they like, things that they would like to see, and we took suggestions from the kids on that. So that was a nice little group meeting that we had with the kids. And then the fun began with the pizza challenge. We had the Professor Pizza, Tony Scardino, was there that evening. We had about 9 teams of McGee versus middle school plus 2 high school team nutrition teams. We provided a ton of fun ingredients, a little bit unusual outside of the regular pizza sauce, mozzarella cheese, and pepperoni, but they had fresh basil, artichoke, fresh garlic, Alfredo sauce, barbecue sauce. They really got fun with the ingredients. And then they got to sample, of course, a ton of pizza that night. We had some guest judges, including some of our board members. We had a a lot of fun that night, and we were just judging the different types of pizzas, even though they were all very good and very creative. The winner was the double lover, which was a half pepperoni, artichoke, mushroom, tomato sauce, and the other half was sausage, pepper, spinach, and Alfredo sauce. And of course, we also had the principal challenge, which was middle school versus McGee, and I believe the winner went to McGee, even though it was a close call. This was a professional development that we had the opportunity to attend along with some of our foreign exchange teachers. We went to the RLAS Hall and we got to listen to some of the best from the NFL, which was pretty neat, how they got to talk about athlete nutrition and leadership on and off the field, which was great to be able to bring that back to the Round Lake School District. The World Food Event held in April was a really neat opportunity for families to participate and enjoy diversity of different cultures of the world. We were present to help assist and ensure safety and sanitation. That was all being met. But in addition to that, we were also able to provide different cuisines. We had Organic Life provided Italian, bruschetta, Mexican elote, corn, and gazpacho Mexican fruit salad. So that was a really fun night for families in the community. The Team Nutrition Recipe Grant, which I'm sure you are aware of, the Round Lake High School was selected for ISBE's newly created Team Nutrition Recipe Development Challenge. It was a grant, and the team consisted of 12 high school students, 2 teacher sponsors, Miss Maria and Mr. Ricard, and Organic Life representatives. We met with the students. We had a blast while they created fun recipes with seasonal vegetables. We even used homegrown micro basil and parsley out of the high school science department. 8 total schools in Illinois made it to the finals. I think it was out of 20 schools in the state of Illinois. So that was incredibly exciting. Then the next level was when we went to the taste test on April 21st at the Joliet Junior College. Representatives of this college, which was the culinary students, they were able to prepare the recipes that all the students had created. And we were all able to go around level by level in the building. It's an incredible facility, and check out the different kitchens and sample the different recipes that students across Illinois had created, which was really neat. The 2 main dishes from Round Lake High School were the butternut squash chicken pasta and the mushroom Alfredo with chicken that you have tasted this evening, so I hope you enjoyed it. That was created by our very own Round Lake High School students. But that was one of the beginning parts of the Team Nutrition program was, in addition to teaching the students about safety and sanitation in the kitchen and ingredients and all that, creating the recipes, they took a field trip. I should say we took a field trip to Tony's Fresh Market. So that was a lot of fun. We got to go through the grocery store. We were able to tour the back of the kitchen. We received lessons on produce. Asked questions, they answered questions. Students were hard at work organizing shopping lists, looking for ingredients, figuring out quantities, reading labels, and using their time efficiently. So it was definitely a fun experience. And then at the end, they got to check out all their groceries. And the event at the Joliet Junior College, as you could see, there's a chef who was just giving us little lessons. We got to see incredible ice sculptures in their walk-in freezers. It was pretty incredible what we got to see at the Joliet Junior College. Here is the butternut squash chicken pasta along with the mushroom Alfredo with chicken, so you could see the way that it was displayed during the event. And I'd like to bring up Carolina to talk a little bit more about the experience.
Hello, it's nice to see everyone again. So, as she mentioned, the Nutrition Club. It was a lot of fun, and I first heard about it from my AP Environmental teacher. He had it up on display, and I told my friend, hey, let's go to the Nutrition Club, see what it's about. So, after school on a Thursday, went after school and saw what it was about. Lots of fun. Guess what? We got to eat, and that was my personal favorite part. Throughout the weeks that I went, I had a lot of fun, like learning new things and, of course, meeting new friends. But there's a couple things I want to highlight. Let's get a raise of hands. Who loves pastries? I love cake. We all love cake. Cookies, cake, yes. So online during quarantine, I got really good at baking. I loved baking. But something that I was really bad at was forgetting to check if we had eggs. So I'd be mixing up all of my ingredients, all of my dry ingredients, and then I'd go to the fridge and there's no eggs. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, Mom, there's no eggs. Like, we gotta go get eggs. During the weeks that I went to the Nutrition Club, we learned how to meal prep. We learned to cut up all of our ingredients beforehand and use them once we finished meal prepping. And that was one of the things I took away. So now I go home and instead of going midway, hey Mom, I need eggs, I meal prep beforehand and now I can bake a cake successfully. So yeah, I've learned that, and I've learned a lot of other things. I've had a lot of fun meeting new friends and going to this competition. Another thing I really enjoyed was the fact that we got to learn to make things from scratch. As you tasted earlier, the pasta, my favorite, the butternut squash one, that was my personal favorite. We got to learn how to make those things from scratch. And I didn't know how to make pasta from scratch. I didn't know that you didn't just use the pre-made sauce that you use in the little cans. I use that. But at these practices after school, we got to make these things from scratch. So I went home after and cooked some up for my mom, and she loved it. And now she asks me all the time, hey, are you gonna make it from scratch or are you gonna go get the pre-made sauce? And I'm like, no, Mom, I'm obviously gonna make it from scratch. So I'm so incredibly grateful that I got to learn how to make that. On top of this, I know a couple other students really enjoyed trying new foods that they've never tried before. The butternut squash, for one. Some of my team members have never tried that before. And the first day that I had gone, we got to taste a ton of different cut up food. And we got to see what we liked and what we didn't like. And some of our members were trying this for for their first time. And it was incredible seeing other students, of course, try different things. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, overall, it was an incredible experience. And yes, I'm excited that I'm leaving and it's my senior year. But I wish this would have been a thing last year, and I wish I could continue it, but I can't, because I'm leaving. So I hope to see it grow next year, and I hope, because a lot of the members are juniors and underclassmen, so I hope they can tell me all about it next year and how much more they're going to learn. Thank you.
Okay, I won't be as eloquent as Carolina. She's great, but I think we have to say thank you for all this experience and this chance for the kids. Most of the students are English learners, and it was a chance for them to relate in another way in a club after the school and connecting with their roots, with their origins, because I think food is something all of us we eat in all the world, but we can relate so different when we're in the kitchen. So I think it was a chance for them to teamwork, to talk about other things and try different foods, as she stated. So thanks to Organic Life, because they provide all the different vegetables there. And thanks all of you for the chance to run this club.
Thank you. That was very lovely to hear your experience. It was a lot of fun. I have to say, I was very thankful that I got to participate in that as well. And in addition to that, we were also featured in the Herald News. Dr. Kibitz, Carolina, and myself, we had a few comments that were in the article, so that was pretty neat too, to describe a little bit about our experience. And I do want to note that at the very end of the event, when the chef was making his closing final remarks, he had asked all the students from the different districts, what was your favorite? And the Round Lake High School butternut squash chicken pasta was one of the very favorites that got a huge round of applause. So that was really, really neat to hear that. And last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and we had provided meals to the teachers and the staff, and I believe we had served over 1,100 lunches last week. So we're very grateful for all the teachers and their hard work. It takes a village. And that's it for now. Until next year, we will be back with more fun stuff. And thank you for a great school year and the continued partnership as always. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you for dinner. It was delicious. And also, I have 2 older children who are now jealous of my younger son, who gets to eat fabulous lunches. And he's previously been very picky, and I just want to say he stumbled upon the World Food Event when he was here after school and came home, Mom, I tried Filipino food and Indian food. Do you know how to make Indian food? And I was like, well, I could learn. So you got him to try new things. And I'm also appreciative of the supper that is made available to my child who is here 5 days a week after school. That it makes me feel a little better that he has some sustenance so he doesn't wither away to nothing. But I'm greatly appreciative. Thank you.
And I'll just piggyback on the appreciation, and I'll say it from a different role with my role with ISBE, your partnership with ISBE Lake Division with our meetings that were hosted here was truly beneficial to the entire Lake Division as well. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add again, so appreciation. I love that we're finding new areas and opportunities for the kids to learn and experience foods. So to hear the students when they come say that they're trying foods that they maybe wouldn't have or learning how to do things from scratch, it's just the education and nutrition is just as important. So I appreciate that we're able to do that.
And I agree 100% too. And I love to support, we do as Organic Life, love to support the school district and the students in the community. So we're very grateful and we've had a great time and we can't wait for more things to come next year too.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to keep the fun going, and next up is our professional learning presentation. Woo!
Well, good evening, everyone. As always, it is an honor to talk about professional learning here at Round Lake. As you know, the Department of Professional Learning is currently in its 5th year of existence. So what I would like to do tonight is commemorate this milestone by talking about how the last 5 years have laid a firm foundation for us to expand, innovate, be creative, and most importantly, to guarantee that adult learning directly impacts student learning in our district. So as you know, we hold to certain core values, and I just want to go through them really quickly here. Choice and personalization is our #1 value for all staff members in all job titles. Firstly, it respects their agency as professionals, and people just learn better when they have some choice and they have customization. Then 2, we want to support every single PD leader in our district, not just on a personal level, but also by making sure that they have the training and the tools and the resources to implement best practices in professional learning so that they can confidently give high quality PD. And then finally, As I said, we want to make sure that adult learning impacts student learning. That's why we're here, right? And so it is really what takes a good PD program to a great PD program when you can prove that your learning activities are increasing student learning, student behavior, or student well-being. So just to briefly recap our journey, so the last 5 years, we've built this foundation, right? In 2018, we laid some important programmatic foundations. We got our mentoring program in order. We revamped RLU and Summer Academy. Then in 2019, we focused on our leaders. Specifically, we got PD leaders for every single related services job category. And we established a Presenter Academy badge, which helped support every single PD leader. And the badge program in general was one more tool that leaders could use to deliver or to receive needed PD. And then the COVID years were really focused on intensifying individual support. So what that looked like practically: instructional coaching, group coaching, success teams, administrative mentoring, online on-demand PD, all of these things that were very personalized and very one-to-one intense just to get through the pandemic. But what it also allowed us to do was to be innovative with PD in ways we maybe wouldn't have otherwise. And now this school year, I would actually say we're there in terms of mindset. We don't have to sell the value of PD anymore. We're not trying to convince people and run an advertising campaign. People in our district believe in professional learning. They believe it can have an impact on their job. And so what's next for us is to increase that impact. Now, this is not to say at all that we are eroding any foundations. As I say, we're building on certain key aspects of the program that are enabling our future success. And the most important ones are listed here. So with related services PD, this is one that we've had for the last 4 years. Every category, so nurses, OT, PTs, psychologists, social workers, and more, all have a PD leader whose job it is to facilitate those job-alike meetings and to work with me to get the best PD possible for that group. So one thing each group does every spring is to pick its own PD for the future year. Usually it will be a combination of speakers, trainings, webinars, online courses, and they provide me the list. I procure the PD, and then they do it for the remainder of the year. So that choice and personalization, one of our ongoing programs that just elevates the system for our related services. And then badging too. As you know, we recently purchased Witsby, which will help us expand our already large badge portfolio with more online on-demand options. And it will allow us to introduce competency-based badges. So this is where you would consume the direct instruction, so the readings or the videos, online at your own pace. But then the badge leader, me or whoever it is, comes into your classroom and watches you doing it, right? So if you took a badge on classroom management, it's one thing to read the book, it's one thing to watch the videos and do the modules. It's another thing to do it in your classroom. And to have someone who is a competency-based badge leader come in and watch you in action and watch you implement your learning, that deepens the impact and you get personalized feedback. Our Summer Academy, another veteran program, has been hybrid for the last few years, and that level of choice has actually increased people's engagement with it because they, of course, like the choice of being able to attend in person or online. And then our mentoring program, one of our foundations that we're most proud of. So for teachers, this is a 2-year program. And because we are in our 5th year of this program, former mentees are now qualified to apply to be mentors. So we actually just hired 2 former mentees from our program as mentors for next school year. And we feel like that's a good validation of the program because they want to pay it forward to future new teachers. So we're proud of that and of the fact that we have administrative mentoring. And I will tell you, I do not know many other districts that do administrative mentoring. So to me, it's a testament to our district's willingness to help even our leaders, right? But it is not just through mentoring that we support leaders. We provide guaranteed onboarding to all of our incoming specialists and department chairs, of which we had quite a high number this past year. So they all do 2 badges, Leader Ladder and Presenter Academy, and we train every single one of them in instructional coaching because that's a key part of their job. This year, we started doing something called classroom visit forums, which was where all people who regularly visit classrooms and use those forums got together to talk about what to look for when they are in classrooms. So what do we look for in a co-talk classroom or in an SGI classroom? What do we look for in an inquiry-driven classroom? That way they can provide that targeted feedback when they're actually watching a teacher. And then for all of our leaders, we do run annual book studies. So this year it was on a book called Crucial Accountability, which was all about how to have a high stakes conversation. And those book studies provide this extra layer of community for our leaders because they might not otherwise have a chance to get together with other leaders just for the purpose of talking about leadership skills. So where are we going next? And how are we making sure that we have that deep impact on student learning or behavior or well-being? So for next year, we're introducing a program or a style of PD that we call EPIC. It has to have a name. So the way that the EPIC PD program works, we start with a set of student outcomes, and together we ask the question, what professional learning activities do we need to do together to improve these outcomes? And who's doing that? Building PD cohorts. Now what I mean by that, building administrators, DCs, plus district coordinators and district specialists who have been assigned to buildings and are working together to examine student outcomes and plan PD specifically to improve those. So think about the cycle listed here. Examine the need for change. We start with those student outcomes. We start with where we currently are and light a fire, light a desire to change. We practice new strategies that we believe will improve those outcomes. This might mean something teachers do in the classroom. It might mean some new way of talking to or interacting with students. We collect data on it. This could be student learning data, it could be student behavior data, it could be walkthrough data, but that data is coming back in and telling us how we're doing. Is our plan working? Are we making the change we wanted to make? Are the strategies effective? And then, based on that, we coach each other for success. So maybe you're having success where I'm not. Let's talk. During PD time, let's work together to adjust, calibrate, and improve. So what I like about this system, firstly, it is clearly relevant. It's aligned to school improvement plans. That's where the plan is coming from. That's where our student outcomes and our strategies and our measuring, tactics, those are all based on the SIPs. And it's continually informed by data. So it truly is a cycle. It's not a one and done. It's not something that we told you in August. Why aren't you doing it in May? It's cyclical. There still is that clear aspect of choice because within each building, we are deliberately providing teachers a menu of different options that they can take based on what they like and what will help them learn. So things like coaching, success teams, PLC pods, all of those great innovations from COVID are staying. They're just being tailored to the SIP plans. So the entire catalog for, let's just say, Murphy is tailored to the Murphy SIP plan, but we've still built in choice because, as I said at the beginning, that's one of our top values. So you might be wondering, what is the role of the Department of Professional Learning with EPIC PD? It is to provide a through line, ensuring that all PD involves best practices, includes adult learning theory, and data analysis and peer coaching. So providing that philosophical pillar for all buildings, plus ongoing collaboration. So as I said, we have district employees, we have coordinators, CNI specialists working together in buildings and the Department of Professional Learning facilitating the planning process. And then finally, just a little bit of a turn here. In our district, we do such exceptionally innovative work in the arena of professional development that we want to get the word out. So as we plan all of these things and as we just grow our reach and try new methods with PD, we want to get the word out there through a few tools. You know about the Parent Partnership Library. That's been a collaboration between the Communications Department and ours for a year. It has brought parents into the conversation about why we do what we do. And we've expanded it, we push it out on social media, and we've noticed engagement with that. Additionally, the Department of Professional Learning is now on social media as well. We've started with a Twitter and an Instagram account, and the purpose of this is twofold. So firstly, it brings us into communication with other industry professionals, so other names in the world of professional learning, other districts with robust professional learning departments. But then for our own staff members who follow us, there is a teaching aspect as well. So if you follow us, you've been probably picking up some PD tips and tricks because we push those out pretty regularly so that people accidentally learn if they follow on Instagram, which we like. We were invited to participate in the Lake County ROE's instructional coaching group. So that's a very flattering picture of me presenting. We shared our coaching crew structure. They asked us to talk a little bit about our philosophy and success with group coaching. And then finally, our new teacher induction website. For next year, we want it to be both a tool for our new teachers where they can get resources on demand, but then also a little bit of an advertisement to potential employees to say, look at what Round Lake does for its new teachers. So, in conclusion, we are focused as much as we can on maintaining and building our foundations and on making sure that all adult learning directly impacts student learning. Thank you, and I hope to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
I have a couple of questions. So I know, like, we just did our last PD that first Wednesday in May or whatever that date was. When we wrap that up, do we do surveys from the staff on what we feel is working or is not, and maybe where we need to change direction?
We do surveys. We actually did one in the fall, though, to try and make bigger plans for next year because it's really hard in May to pivot all of a sudden and change plans for August. So our fall survey focused on, I guess, two key areas. One was perception of how much the district cares about your professional learning. So actually, I know this number because I added it to a greatness indicator. 82% of our staff agreed with the statement, the district cares about my professional learning, which I thought was a testament to the fact that at the very least we are doing a lot to try, right? So 82% bought in. The other thing that we were assessing was perception of the variety and relevance of topics. And we had a lower indicator there, I can't remember what it was, but something like 2/3 of staff said that they appreciated the variety of topics, but we still had 1/3 that thought we could be more relevant. So that's part of what we're trying to do next year.
And hence that comes the WITSB and bringing in WITSB and having greater topics to pull from.
Based on what I've seen with WITSB, if you can't find something relevant there, I don't know where you can find it. Its library is pretty deep and expansive, so yes, that is a connection.
Okay. The social media, I know you're on Twitter and Instagram. Is there a Facebook that will happen, or what's the next step?
I do think Facebook is the next step. We just wanted to get our feet wet and just sort of try a few things and see what types of posts people liked and see what kind of engagement we got and put our name out there. But yes, we do intend to start Facebook next year.
Next school year or next calendar year?
Next school year.
Just wanted to check. Because, everybody has their preferred platform and not everybody's on Twitter or Instagram. So just making sure we're not missing those folks who are the Facebook people.
I agree 100% next school year.
Great, thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, thank you. It's always amazing work. All right, next up, we get to communicate to our community as well. All of us, bar one, were able to attend professional learning conferences in the state of Florida this spring. So everyone has attached notes. I will start it by just, for mine, I'll make it real simple. Mine was in the documentation and it's going to be in the public content. Please review it. If you've got questions, again, it's a great chance for us to be able to learn and to keep ourselves up to date on the activities that are going on in the education sphere, which is so, the amount of work that our administration does to stay on top of it is mind-boggling. So definitely thank you for that and for the team's work in regards to that. My review is attached. We can just kind of go around and everyone give a high level of what you've turned in. And I guess we could start over on the end with Annette, and we'll work around that way.
All right. So as Mr. Francisco said, we attended COSBA, the inaugural conference that was held this year for the Consortium of State School Board Associations. Obviously, this being an inaugural year for this conference, I thought they did a really good job organizing and in the classes and speakers that they had. I gave a pretty detailed overview of everything that I attended. I guess I would just highlight the generational strategy that I attended. It was by Chuck Underwood, who also hosts Americans Generation on PBS. I've attended a lot of seminars and classes in relation to being on the board. I would say in the 18 years, this was probably the best one I've ever attended. It was literally very fascinating, and Mr. DeVera is nodding. I have to say, when it started, he's a very dry speaker, and you were thinking, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to like this one. But I think he almost did that intentionally to see who was paying attention. But he really drew you in. It was literally that when it ended, people were sad, and I'm not even kidding. And it started with him being the keynote speaker for the start of this day, and then he was carrying it over into a class after the keynote. Well, when they carried it over to the class, there were so many people that went. The fire marshal came in and said, there's too many people. We had to take it back to the ballroom because there were so many people that he had really encapsulated in listening to his speech. I shared just a few of the slides in the report, but he has a book also out on generational strategy. It is truly fascinating, and it really speaks to, and you'll see in the slides it talks about each generation. I don't want to give anyone's age, but I think you know where you fall on here. But there's questions my kids always asked why I am the way I am with certain things, and he literally spoke to those things. And Mr. DeVere and I were sitting there thinking, oh, so we took screenshots, send them to our kids. This is why I am the way I am. But then I learned even things about my kids as for their generation and the students and the population we serve. So it was really fascinating. I just included a few clips. I took pictures almost of all the screens that he shared, that if you're really interested in, I'd be happy to send you. But that was it. It was a really good conference. I thought they did a great job.
Thank you, Annette. Peg?
Okay. So I'll do a real brief overview. A couple of the key ones I went to. One of the big ones, I think based on a lot of what we see in the news lately, professional boundaries and keeping students safe was an amazing one that I went to on the Friday when we were down there. And I know Mr. Jewett was with me. It was really interesting. They were talking. It was a community from Alaska, and what they had been through was just unbelievable and unknowing, and how situations can creep up that you don't necessarily realize, but really talked a lot about, training your faculty and reminding your faculty more than once a year and things like that, because things just kind of creep up out of nowhere. And they were a huge, because they were in Alaska, they were a huge, spaciously, they were a huge district over. I mean, the superintendent had to take an airplane to get to the schools. Okay, it was crazy, but it was just they just a lot of stuff about keeping their kids safe and how predators were easier to get to them because they were so isolated and stuff. But a lot of things that we do right, and then a lot of things that kind of checked in my head that said, oh, maybe we should review that more often, kind of thing. Then I went to a master class on crisis communication, which was interesting, but turned out to be a pitch because he was a spin doctor. So it was kind of interesting. And then another one about dual enrollment strategies and getting districts and higher education working together. And I know we have some of that going on here. Then there was a fabulous one about multi-tiered system. Having gone to that, and this group had 56 schools and 30,000 students and 79 different languages, and they had so much money. This school district did. I mean, but considering we're a district with not that kind of money, we have a lot of similar things that we already do. So I was kind of proud of us on that one. But one of the other things I found, some of the resources there, the DEA was there giving out educational material, just curriculum on thumb drives for any educators who wanted it, their newest curriculum for drug education, which I thought was great. And then I found this great group of people that I put information in for us. Because I know in the past I've asked about, hey, can we track our seniors that graduate? And I know what a nightmare that is, and there's actually a group that does that. And it would do it for us. So I was like, hey, hand me your info, I'll pass that on. So I've got all that in mind too.
No, that's it. I'm probably not going to be that long because I'm not really a long talker. But just to build off the generational seminars that Annette was talking about, kind of the point of it was just as to know how the generations are formed and how they were shaped and what their beliefs and values are as to how to market and target towards that group and which group you're trying to target to get a referendum passed or what have you. So you target certain beliefs and what shaped their generation to kind of move that up and to get more focused on that. And then the last thing was the ending keynote was John Quinones, which anybody who watches TV knows. He's an ABC News correspondent and host of What Would You Do? And he just talked about, it was a lot of, it was a motivational talk more so. And kind of, talked about the role of education played in his journey from, migrant farmer. His family was migrant farmers, moved around, went to Michigan, I believe he said, to where he's at today. And how he would get caught up early on into speaking to the movers and the shakers. And he said one time Peter Jennings told him, he said, don't focus on the movers and the shakers, but speak to the moved and the shaken, which is a pretty good kind of thing to keep in mind. So that's all I have.
Scott.
And same as Miss Larson in terms of the professional boundaries. That one, the story from Alaska, they have the FBI involved. Yeah. Glad we've never had, as far as I know, we've never had the FBI involved. No. Okay, good. We've never had the FBI involved. So yes, exactly. But it was a good check. It was a good check because they came to share, don't let this happen to you. Then, ironically, the next one, the storytelling for leaders, wasn't that good, which I thought was kind of ironic. And then there were the next ones that really stood out. One, some of the other board members had talked about the gratitude you feel about how far and how much that the district does offer. That definitely showed up. There were some from chaos to quality, building cohesive teams. That felt like, all right, that seems like that is in a pretty good place. Blended approach and developing the whole child. I'm like, all right, that feels like in a pretty good spot. In terms of, there was one, helping students develop resilience. That was the gentleman that is the Why Try program. And Peg said that they had used some of their material I really liked his his presentation, it felt especially really relevant with some of the experiences that our children, that all of us really deal with, and how that resilience is really built through struggle, not around it. But the NSBA, they seem to really backload some of the best content to the last day of the seminar, which I didn't think was very kind. They should have put that in the front end. And but there was two things that really stood out that I thought was cool. One district talked about their district-wide implementation of a Spanish immersion, which I thought was really interesting, where half the school was actually going through complete Spanish immersion, where K through 5 has Spanish being taught by natives, really predominantly native students or participants within that class, 50% of K through 5, and then it tapers off as the students get older, which I thought was really just very fascinating. And then the other one was the general session, Adam Chayer, which is one of the founders and engineers of Siri. He spoke and talked a lot about AI and how when some of the other, he was one of the developers for AI or for Siri. And when Siri was created, a lot of people thought it was supposed to be just another search engine like a Google or a Yahoo or so on. And they're like, no, this is actually created to be an AI. And there are a couple things he said. One is, will AI take our jobs? No. Will people that are using AI take our jobs? Yeah, probably. So it is something that we definitely want to learn how to adopt and adapt with. And he said the exact same concerns that people have now for AI were the same concerns that people were talking about and when the internet was coming out and all the different searches and that sort of thing. So we're just going to need to be able to learn how to work with it.
Okay, so the couple just.
Oh, one more thing. Another thing was really cool was the MegaCon, the Comic-Con was going on right next to the conference. And so just imagine the different vibes. So you've got one vibe where you're there and it's all like school board people. And then come through our Comic-Con people, which is so flippin' awesome. So you got Superman coming through, right? So you have superheroes in one group and then and just the looks. So that was fun.
No, it was awesome. We'd be like, somebody wearing a suit, and then Poison Ivy would walk by, and then Batman. Okay, so let me switch back to where I was here. The first day I went to a full session. It wasn't actually the session that I was supposed to go to, so I was a little disappointed in that. And essentially it was, hold on, because I have to get back to where I was. I apologize. I clicked off of it, I apologize. But essentially it was using metrics and information to basically like do board evaluations, and I felt like I was very secure in that. Our board is very on top of the self-evaluations and kind of looking at pros and cons. Overall, I was a little bit disappointed in that I felt like a lot of the content was to sell things. It was almost like they were commercials. So a lot of them were like for safety and security, it would be like buy our program or buy our book and this will help your school district. And I was a little bit taken aback by that because I just felt like it was a little bit inappropriate. And then the first couple sessions that they had, main sessions where they had speakers come in, they were like an hour and a half or 2 hours long. And literally the first hour and a half would be just them shouting out the vendors and their commercials for the vendors, and then their speaker would speak. So
the first day it was Janelle James, is that right? From Abbott Elementary, who was hilarious and awesome. And so, you know, she's a very beautiful woman. And then the next day they did have President Bush's daughter, Jenna, what is her name again? I clicked off my thing, so I have my notes. Hager, yes. And actually, I have to say, I thought that was brilliant, and she provided a lot of insight. Whatever like preconceived notions I had about her were incorrect. She seemed very humble. She was actually a former educator, which I was surprised about, and talked about the importance of literature and libraries. And she had some really good insight, so I thought that was a highlight. And then the last day, like you said, there were a lot of good sessions that I thought I wanted to call out. The one kind of main overview was just the networking that we did, the meeting people from other boards, kind of hearing their stories, some of the chaos that they're going through, and just being really grateful for our community and our admin and Dr. Mendoza, just being grateful for kind of our cohesiveness. And it seems like everybody in our district really cares about the kids, and not everybody, unfortunately, is experiencing that. So that was like probably my biggest takeaway, is that I just really appreciate everybody here seems to be very focused on, you know, teaching the whole child and what's right for them. And I think that was kind of my very high level overview.
Thank you. Everyone, again, thank you for being willing to go, to travel, to continue your continuing education. And thank you for presenting today. All right, next up, I think we're going to give it back to Dr. Kibbins, and it is time to start talking 2024 budget assumptions.
Well, we've been talking fiscal 24 budget assumptions for a while in my office. We're just now really starting to transition from fiscal 23 to fiscal 24. As we look at our current budget assumptions, a couple of highlights to bring to you. At the previous Board of Education meeting, I had shared both fiscal 23 and fiscal 24. We are putting a close on fiscal 23, and so from here on out, we'll be only focusing on fiscal 24 as we start to transition for the 2023-2024 school year. Want to keep in mind that we have not received any updated information from the state level on our revenue sources. So everything that's being shared for here is a flat level of our evidence-based funding. We do have two adjustments to the budget assumptions from what you had seen at the previous meeting. Line 21 is the Old National Bank lease that is also on the agenda for approval this evening. It was also brought to Finance Committee earlier this evening, and that is going to be the new home for some of our offices moving forward, pending Board of Education approval. The dollar amount that's listed in line 21 is $70,000. That is for phase 1 and phase 2. Currently, phase 1, we will, again, pending Board of Education approval, will be taking ownership of that space July 1, and that rate is just around $33,000. As our opportunities expand at the bank, that second phase would be phase 2. We're anticipating that square footage would be a little bit more than what we would have now. So we have a placeholder there of $70,000. Also added to the budget assumptions is line 43, and that would be for a 2.0 special education teacher request, and those teachers would be at Pleviak and Ellis based on the lab programs. So again, those two items are pending Board of Education approval with a flat evidence-based funding and some pending things on the table this evening for the board. We do have a positive budget position of $1,061,726. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to assist.
Any questions from the board? Is that a question or just pulling it? Okay. Hearing none, thank you very much. As always, thank you for keeping us in the loop, and thank you for keeping it very clean for us. All right, next up is our recycle of obsolete technology. Mr. Kozak will have that, and it's all in here. Does any questions for the administration in regards to the presented information? Hearing none, thank you very much. We will then move on. And it is the May 2023 Strategic Plan Monthly Updates.
Dr. Stefan, you were going to update the board briefly on a section. Thank you, Board President Francisco.
Good evening. I wanted to just call attention to a couple of things on the update document. If you look under theme B, meeting the unique needs of learners, that particular goal number 1, talking in regards to MTSS. I know we had talked about coming back to the board to provide an update. We will be doing that this summer, but I thought right now I'd jump in to let you know we have training for all district administrators scheduled for June 8th with Branching Minds. I'm super excited to say all of our assessment data is in there. It is very pretty. It's great to see all the kids' assessment data in one central location. So we'll all be getting training, and I thought that was important to bring to your attention that we're moving right along. And over the summer, we will have a handbook that will have Tier 1, which is noted in the strategic plan, but we'll be including info on Tier 2 and Tier 3 in the effort to have a much more developed multi-tiered system of support for kids. So I wanted to let you know on that one. And the other goal that is exciting to just kind of note in theme E under equity, goal 2, continuing diversity training for staff. I'm happy to say that all district administrators have completed equity training, some way more than others. I think some of us have been through, tens and tens and tens of hours, but it was fun. We finished some training with Paul Gorski and the Equity Literacy Institute for all district administrators and also principals, and assistant principals were invited. And we did wrap up some webinars for all staff at the end of April as well. You can see the titles in there. One of them focusing on instructional strategies to support equity and creating an inclusive environment, also for our students that identify as LGBTQIA+. So good stuff going on.
And just a gentle reminder, we'll be bringing a year-end closeout to the strategic plan in June, just like we do every year.
Any questions from the board to the administration? Hearing none, thank you very much for that. Review contracts under 1,000, did not appear that we had any for this cycle. So next up would be public comment. Members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Electronic public comments are accepted until noon on the day of the regularly scheduled meeting, and the public commenter will be contacted to confirm identity. Once confirmed, the electronic public comment will be provided to all board members in written form. A link to the electronic public comment form can be found in the online documentation. We did have electronic public comment this week. It was forwarded to the entire board. Everyone should have already had that and been able to review that. So thank you for the electronic public comment. And now at this time, do we have any local public comment? All right. Hearing none? Nope. All right. Got to wave off from Mr. Falda, so we're good there. So next up, then we will step to the superintendent's report, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Board President Francisco and Board of Education. Please join me in congratulating Round Lake High School senior Lily Burton, as she is one of 14 winners of the IHSA F inaugural class of scholarship winners. Basically, that's the Illinois High School Activities Foundation Scholarship winner. Each of the winners will receive a scholarship toward their future education. To be eligible for the scholarship, the candidates had to be seniors at IHSA schools who plan to major in education, intend to get involved in the coaching profession after high school, or are currently licensed and actively working as an IHSA official. The Illinois High School Activities Foundation is a private 401c3 not-for-profit organization that works in conjunction with the Illinois High School Association to support and advance the mission of the IHSA. Congratulations to Lily and her family. As a gentle reminder, we have high school and middle school ceremonies this weekend for your convenience. The Round Lake High School graduation is tentatively planned for this Friday, May 19th at 6 p.m. Board member arrival and staging, 5 p.m., room N102, which is downstairs below by the gathering stair. Please bring a parking pass on site at Round Lake High School. Dinner will be provided. I will tell the board and state publicly I intend to make a decision on whether or not we're having it on Friday, sometime on Thursday. So we have credit to the teaching and learning team in the high school. We have several options. And it looks like at this time, Friday is the only possibility of rain in the next 6 days. And wouldn't that be our luck? Round school recognition tentatively planned for Saturday, May 20th, 2023, 9 a.m. Same staging area. Time is 8 a.m. Please bring your parking pass. Breakfast will be provided. Dinner will be provided to you during the high school ceremony prior to it starting. We also have McGee tentatively planned on Saturday for 11:30 a.m. Board member staging, same room. We will continue to monitor the weather for the high school graduation ceremony scheduled for Friday. Should adjustments need to be made due to weather, just want to send a reminder. The backup options are Saturday, May 20th at 6 p.m. and Sunday, May 21st at 6 p.m. We will keep you informed. Below is a list of donations recently made to Round Lake Area School District 116 and schools. Jewel Osco of Round Lake Beach, 6 cases of water for the Beach School Blacktop Bash. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. Any questions for Dr. Mendoza in regards to the superintendent's report? Looking forward to the, as always, busy time of the year. All right, so next up, let's move to some approval of open meeting minutes.
You don't want the finance report?
Oh, yeah, that one.
Just checking.
Yes, absolutely. I completely skipped over that, so that was a failure on my part.
No, it's all good. Just wanted to check, make sure if anybody wanted to know. So yes, earlier today, the Finance Committee met. As in past, there's quite a few agenda items on the Finance Committee that we've already completed the Organic Life presentation, which you have already received. And again, thank you to Organic Life for dinner this evening and to the students who created those tasty dishes. Also on the agenda later is the crash bar alarms and Magna Lock additions and the ALICE training. We already heard the fiscal year 24 budget assumptions from Dr. Kibbins. And then later is the fiscal 23 budget amendment public hearing. And then as Dr. Kibbins alluded to already, we'll be talking about the lease for the Old National Bank. We also will talk about, and again, I'll go in detail as these agenda items come up, the bus lease extension, and then the increase of 2.0 FTE special education teachers and teaching assistants. The item that we had for discussion on the Finance Committee meeting was the software called Turnitin. This is a 1-year contract. This is a software that will be used by the high school, and this is for students and staff for to authenticate or for cited work. So for a lot of our classes that we have where they're citing work, this will be used as an online resource that identifies citation errors. And teachers can use it for, there's no nice way to say it, but plagiarism. I was trying to find a nice way to say it, but there really isn't. That'll, academic fraud.
Academic fraud.
There we go. Either way you put it, it doesn't sound any better. So that'll come at the next board meeting, which will be June. Under the informational items on the Finance Committee, you will see there were a couple items I do want to highlight. There's a great update from Mr. Karolzak in regards to the flag football program, where the high school received a donation. There are quite a few questions posed by finance, so I hope you take the time to read that and how that program will exist more as a club because again, it's not an IHSA sanctioned sport at this time. And how it'll work and what's called the jamboree style. So the other schools that are part of this program, we will be the host school. So everybody will come here and they'll play. We share the costs of the referees because it's that jamboree style. So it's not a cost we absorb completely, but we share with those other existing schools. So when that is scheduled, of course, we'll get that out to the board so that hopefully everyone can attend. Also in the packet, you will see the RLHS main gym scoreboards. So the Round Lake High School, the gym will be getting a new scoreboard. In that packet, you'll see the rendering of what that scoreboard will look like. So yes, it'll be a digital scoreboard. It will match what is outside in the stadium. This is coming, being funded by a donation from the Round Lake Boosters, athletic boosters. There is a small portion coming out of the existing budget, but it is a generous donation by the Round Lake Athletic Boosters. So hopefully you've looked at those pictures. This should be installed over the summer, making sure, you know, as with anything being installed, no holdups with parts or anything, we should have it for the next school year. And then in regards to the treasurer's report, I just wanted to highlight, as we know, Dr. Kivens has been great at managing the money to make our money work for us, and we have reached the $1 million mark in her using the monies with funds with the P card and investments. So our investments have done very well, thanks to Dr. Kivens. And that is it for finance, unless Mr. DeVera wants to add anything.
No, I don't. Back to you in the studio.
That'll be it. I'm sorry, do you have a question?
I just had a quick question in regards to the lease for Old National. I don't know if I should ask like when we go over it, but I wanted to ask just really quick, like the lawyers did look at it, our attorneys did look at it.
Of course.
Yeah, just to have to check.
Yeah, of
And
course.
then,
It's always a question to ask.
Yeah. And then when I was looking at it, is it true that like if they break the lease, we only have a 90-day term? Did I read that correctly?
Say that
If
again,
they
I'm sorry.
decide to, if there's like the lease is broken, we have 90 days.
We break the lease
or either way. I wanted to make sure I was understanding that because I was like, that's not much time.
Thank you. It is anticipated that we're going to have another lease come back to you just because we're going to have a second phase of this property. So this is to get us in the door starting July 1 because the rate and term that's there, but we would need another lease for the additional space.
Thank you. I was wondering. I'm like,
okay. Yeah, and I know we're going to go over it in greater detail. There was some language in the contract we were also working with the bank, just contractual language that we prefer versus what they wanted. So I know Dr. Kivens has worked very hard to make sure we got language that was favorable, of course, to the district.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Now we'll go to the meeting minutes. All right, I need a motion to approve the April 26, 2023 special board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mrs. Larson. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the April 26 special board meeting hearing minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yeah.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the May 1st, 2023 special board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Ms. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Abstain.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the May 1st, 2023 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the accounts payable report for $990,304.24. The previous motions report for $95,005.97. The April 2023 treasurer's report, the April 2023 P-card report, the May 15th, 2023 employment report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Motion carries, which now brings us to introduction of new administration.
Good evening. I am super pleased to have the opportunity to introduce Sarah Lind as the next principal of the Early Education Center. Sarah has worked in the field of education for 18 years. She earned her initial degree in early childhood education, from the University of Wisconsin at Green Bay. And later earned her master's in educational leadership from Cardinal Stritch University in Milwaukee. She spent the first 9 years of her career teaching in kindergarten and early childhood settings, and then also building and implementing a 4K, in other words, a 4-year-old kindergarten classroom. So in addition to teaching 4 and 5-year-old students, Sarah has also developed skill sets, has also developed and instructed courses in early childhood education from the University of Wisconsin, also at Green Bay. So she taught some early childhood stuff. In prior roles, Sarah developed experience as a program coordinator for 3K and 4K, in RTI as a coordinator, summer school, and instructional coach, and then working to support curriculum and curriculum development across grade levels. We know Sarah as the assistant principal for curriculum instruction at Round Lake Middle School, and she has been an extremely effective assistant principal. Mr. Higgs, in fact, enthusiastically supported her for this new opportunity, though he is definitely going to miss her in the building. Nevertheless, this opportunity provides Sarah the opportunity to get back to where her heart is, which is early childhood education. And then also that previous experience in designing and implementing a new 4K opportunity will help us where we are with the early childhood building and the transition we're making into expanding the program. So Sarah has a true passion for early childhood education, is definitely looking forward to returning to this area of focus, working alongside the EEC team, the great teachers we have there, wonderful assistant principal, and expanding that building and the role for early childhood in Round Lake area schools. So please join me in welcoming Sarah Lind to the role of early childhood education principal.
Thank you. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to become the new EEC principal. Like Dr. Senner said, I'm thrilled to get back to my roots of early learning. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Higgs, Mr. Williams, and the entire Round Lake Middle School staff for the last 3 years and the experience I've had there. and I'm honored to continue my journey here with Round Lake Area Schools. So thank you.
So it's the night of Sarah's. I'm excited to introduce our brand new communication specialist, Sarah LeBlanc. I think Sarah might just be the most common name we have in district, definitely on the admin team, but maybe even across all staff. So Sarah's educational background includes a bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communications from Drake University. Her professional experience to date includes serving as a reporter for the Augusta Chronicle in Georgia and the Des Moines Register in Iowa, and most recently a communications specialist at the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Sarah has long wanted to work in education and is excited to work in a district as diverse as ours. She is passionate about finding new ways to communicate with families and community members and looks forward to brainstorming techniques with the team to help strengthen the relationship between the district and the community we serve. In her free time, Sarah loves to bake, read, and watch bad reality TV. We have that in common. She also loves to ride her bike and is training for the Register's annual bike ride across Iowa, a 500-mile week-long ride across Iowa in July. We don't have that in common. Sarah joined the Round Lake team just last Monday, just after 1 week after relocating from Iowa to Illinois, and has hit the ground running. In her first week, she has already worked closely with a local reporter, helping to highlight the achievement of our recently achieved 2023 Lake County Educator of the Year Award. Please join me in welcoming Sarah LeBlanc to the Round Lake family.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I'm very excited to get started. I have a lot of ideas, so thank you, and I can't wait to start working.
You know you're getting to the interesting part when Mr. Grupaldo leaves.
All right. Go on to old business. I need a motion to approve the board policy revisions as listed within the memo.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Miss Lee? Yes. Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
New business. I need a motion to approve the expenses related to the Board of Education travel, meals, and lodging for the joint annual conference in 2023 in Chicago in an estimated amount of $16,296.25.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
And motion carries. Okay, next up is board committee appointments, liaison assignments, and the 2023-2024 proposed committee meeting schedules. I've already had conversations with each of you, so we're going to kind of run through this and make the appointments, and this will basically get us going for the new term. Finance Committee, absolutely nothing changing there. Annette and Kevin, please continue to do the amazing work that's going on there and keep that rolling for us. Community Engagement Committee. Ms. Klingler, I've definitely talked with you about it and definitely looking forward to you staying on. The one thing, and Mr. Jewett, I've already talked to you. Yep, you gone. No, but definitely in the roll off. Thank you, and keep in mind. And I know Dr. Mendoza is probably going to talk about this a little bit more, but all of these committees are open to not only the public, but all of the rest of us as board members as well to be able to sit in when you have time to be there. So don't hesitate to drop in when you have the availability. But our second member of the Community Engagement Committee, Ms. Lee, I would ask that you start rolling on to that and serve with Mrs. Klingler on the Community Engagement Committee, which I will then do this. I'll roll you off of insurance for the time being. I'll go ahead and roll myself onto insurance just to fill that spot for now. We can readdress that at a later point. Insurance is a very on and off committee anyway, and with my background, I'll fill that hole. So that leaves you, Mr. Jewett. You get to take over as the CEDAW representative, the governing board representative. And Ms. Larson, thank you for all the work you do with CEDAW. You don't get to fall too far away. Congratulations, you're the alternate. Yay. Representative and alternate, we'll talk about that when we get closer to III. So make sure that we put it on the agenda to have that conversation, probably a month or whenever we start talking about resolutions. But we'll figure out who will step into that one. Any questions in regards to those appointments? Any concerns? Good, we're all quiet. I like that.
You just have to read a motion for it.
Can I make a comment on the committee thing?
Please.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So no, I want to make sure I don't. So one of the things that I talked about that you've talked to me about, just frankly connected to my, you've given me really good feedback, is this idea of promoting academic rigor, right? I think everybody remembers that discussion. The one idea I had was I think it's, if you think of what happened this year with our partner schools, I think we did a lot of good work in the public engagement committee. There was a lot of learning going on specific to some ground level questions. And so one of the things I would like to respectfully suggest to the board is rather than having a separate curriculum committee, board committee, which we tried, I'm not sure how well that functioned for a variety of reasons, nothing specific. I'm wondering if the public engagement committee, because promoting academic rigor in the community, one of the ideas is to have Dr. Center work with that committee, develop a topic list on academic rigor, and literally spend the entire year on various topics related to academic rigor, because it is community-based as well. And then that group, in this case it would be Julie and Jennifer or anybody else that wants to attend those meetings, could ask questions. But I think that would be a good way to involve the board in that discussion, and it would be in a little bit more intimate setting. And then through the update process, certainly through strategic planning updates, we can do that as well. But I thought that would be a good venue in which to do that, which would involve the board more on the ground level.
I think that's a great idea. I'm totally down.
That's in addition to the other things you're working on. So, yes, not in lieu of, but in addition to.
That's okay.
And as part of the agenda. Mr. Judge, like, you asked me at exactly the right time. In addition, everyone please note the new proposed, well, the new calendar for Finance Committee, Community Engagement Committee, meeting dates and times. We will be working on the assignment of that here in just a moment with our motions. So any additional questions in regards to committees, committee meeting dates for 23-24 and going forward? Hearing none, we can now move on to some motions.
All right. I need a motion to approve the board committee appointments as discussed. Finance Facilities, Annette Negretti McGinley Chair with board member Mr. Kevin DeVera, Communications now / Education, Miss Jennifer Klingler and Miss Julie Lee. CEDAL, Mr. Scott Jewett, alternate Miss Peg Larson. Insurance, Mr. Michael Francisco.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
And motion carries.
Can we make one small amendment? You guys, I've been on the board 7 years now. My name is Klingler. It's Klingler. It's misspelled in the packet.
Yep. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to, I need a motion to approve the contract for the implementation of the Mag Lock Access Control Project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Want any discussion?
Anyone have questions, concerns? Finance want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, this was at the finance meeting. Again, this went out for bid. The questions that we had is, you'll see there was only one vendor that came back in the bid process. So we just wanted to make sure that even if it is the one bid that we have to take lawfully, to make sure that it is a vendor who can do the work. And this actually is a vendor who has done other work within the district and has done this, not obviously in our district, but we just wanted to make sure that the vendor is still vetted. And this work will begin right after graduation, unless it changes because of the weather, but it'll happen after graduation. And again,
And the completion will be,
before school starts.
well, okay.
Yeah, and again, just to reconfirm, the mag locks goes on all the doors so students can't exit, and if they do, there's an alarm and security system that goes off. Thank you, I just wanted to add that.
No, thank you. Hearing no additional questions, we will go to roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the contract with Navigate 360 in the amount of $13,831 for an annual basis for a 3-year term, and authorize the superintendent or their designee to execute all related documents.
Second.
Motion by Mr. De Vera, seconded by Mr. Jewett.
And just to add, this was again at Finance Committee. I believe or hope most people are familiar with the RLAS training. I don't even like to say the words if that happens. The questions that came out of finance is, we know this happens for our staff. However, we also know we always have a lot of guest teachers in this district. They are not receiving that training, but we are going to move forward so that they start receiving this training. Again, I don't even like to talk about because I don't want to put it in the universe, but if that ever happens, and you never know, I'm sure there's a guarantee there's going to be a guest teacher somewhere in these buildings. We need to make sure that they are as trained and as attuned to this type of situation, just as we expect our regular staff. So just know that was talked about and highlighted, and that will be addressed.
Okay, here, question. Because this is for online training and materials, is Alice training going to also be live as well?
Yeah, we touched on
Yes, we
that as
talked
well.
about
Yeah.
that. And I don't know if Corey wants to talk about it, but yeah, there will be, is he called tabletop?
Good question, Peg.
The initial rollout for the Alice training will be the e-learning part, and then it'll be a presentation by a Alice certified instructor, and then we'll do the scenario based training, which is the live kind of hands-on stuff, and then that's going to be implemented before the school year next year.
Thank you.
It's all of it. It's the entire suite.
And that's going to roll out to faculty, administration, staff, everyone, like maintenance, everybody involved, basically anybody associated with the district.
Yeah, we're gonna train everyone on Alice from in the first 3 days of the school year.
Yeah, it's for the entire district.
Thank you.
Again, that's why we wanted to make sure, because it's unlimited license, that's why we asked about guest teachers, because that wasn't addressed or talked about. And again, their training is just as paramount as anybody else in the district.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that. Hearing no additional questions, we will go with a roll call, please. Thank you.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
I need a motion to approve the proposed 2025 RLHS band choir trip to Walt Disney World Resort.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Larson. I'll start with the questions. What I noted with our previous trips, and thank you for the clarification, 2015 Nashville, 2017 Disney, 2019 New Orleans. And then, of course, we had to break, unfortunately, due to the world breaking. And then we're back to New York City in 23. But was there a logic behind going back to Disney so quickly instead of expanding to other potential options like Memphis or Bristol, Tennessee, or anywhere else?
The idea is to do Disney every other year. That was the initial plan, so that all students at one, like during their 4 years in high school, would have the chance to go at least once, because the trips happen every other year. So they wanted to make sure that students, like each student group, would have a chance to go to Disney, because that's a special experience going there, and what they do there is kind of exciting for them.
Was there ever a thought to go back to Disney in the winter month as they did the last Disney trip?
They had talked about it. The last time, just the number of people that were in Disney at the time, I thought that they figured they would get more of an experience. Less people would be there at this time of year, so they wanted to try this time.
Hot in the marching band uniforms. Hot.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a not hot time in those uniforms.
I just want to make sure we're doing background checks on the people that are chaperoning.
Yep, they all have to go through the fingerprinting and the background checks through HR.
Especially check this one. Thank you.
Just to expand on places we're taking the kids. Are we looking at? So I understand your logic in Disney World, so that in your 4 years here, that every child gets to go to Disney World. I think many of the only kids that never wanted to go. But are there, besides New Orleans and Nashville, New York City, are there other cities that we're looking at to make sure that we again expand
They have long-term plan, like they probably have ideas of where they want to go for the next 10 years. But we're just trying to kind of like parse this out by the 2 years right now. We're expanding on that. But like other areas, honestly, they've been talking about even international travel to some festivals outside. Nothing has been I'm just talking about like what they have been discussing with me and ideas. So yeah, they have long-term plans and ideas on other locations that they would like to go.
Okay, I'm going to phrase it a different way. I just want to make sure that the group that we use with Entourage Travel doesn't limit us, or it can, obviously we're beholden to where they go as well. So is that going to limit any of those
I apologize.
destinations?
I misunderstood your question. No, they
Not
don't.
phrased it right, but maybe that.
No, they don't limit us. They actually ask us like where we want to go, and then they kind of help build trips around that. For example, they're looking at musical trips next year to go to the city and go see musicals. And the company we usually go with, the Entourage said, "Well, what are you doing with this musical trip? What are you doing?" And they actually created another like proposal for a trip that matched what the other company was doing at a better price for us. So they listen to kind of what we want to do and where we want to go, and they help build those programs around that.
Okay. I guess I just want to make sure that, when we're looking at the history of the cities that our students are taking, that there's, you have Nashville, New Orleans, New York City, and obviously we understand the cadence and building in Disney World, but is there, other places, Seattle, other places on the East Coast
Or even not necessarily having to be the East Coast. I mean,
any coast.
You're right, exactly. I mean,
Just using that as an example.
I mean, as we just saw with the New York City trip, we were able to do that one with flying. So we've now proven to ourselves that we're not beholden to just having to be on a bus. But there's still a lot of opportunities that are close, like Memphis, Tennessee, Bristol, Tennessee. Pick any venue in Texas. I mean, to be completely honest, Austin. So what I would ask is there a potential to bring it back in between the yearly requests and kind of give us a feeler of what opportunities we're looking at? So what are we passing up when we say 2025 New York Walt Disney World? What were the other options that were on the table?
Yeah, I can get you guys a list of that also. They did toss out they did toss out Memphis as a location. They did toss out Austin as locations, but they still wanted to kind of do this Disney every other trip so that the students get a chance to go to Disney once in their 4 years. But I can get a comprehensive list of the ideas that they have been tossing out.
Is the Disney trip comparable to what they paid to New York?
Yes. It depends on which one they go with, because there's a flight option and a bus option listed here.
That was going to be my question. I think, the bus option is always taxing on the students. Having had a student do the bus option to Florida, he's like, "Can't you just fly me there?" It's terrible. It's a terrible bus ride. It really is. I would hope Entourage would try to make it more affordable for our students so that we can do the flying option.
A part of that just depends on when we get closer, the cost for flights. They can't predict that 2 years out, so that's why we put both options on the proposal, and why we wanted to do this 2 years ahead of the game, so that way we can work with the students to do fundraising and really kind of go after that so they can raise more funds so that they can apply those to the trip.
No, I understand, but I don't think the flight option's really ever been an option for the students, at least that I can recall. When my students were in fine arts, it didn't seem like it was even going to be a viable option we looked at. I think we need to look at it. And I'm sure Entourage can negotiate fair travel with that many students, and just in their business, they should be able to negotiate something better.
And they do have the option of the estimate that they gave us is $1,700 to $1,900, which is just $200 less than or more than their bus option when they gave us the estimates.
Which doesn't seem, and I know $200 can be, $200 for me or Dr. Mendoza or anybody else here is maybe different for others, but I think, are we talking to our families to see what options they want to do?
Yeah, they put feelers out, they didn't want to announce the trip, but we did get positive feedback about the flight option when we went to New York. Cramming a lot more into a shorter amount of time, but they liked the idea of getting there faster and not being on the bus for as long. So
And
yeah.
that was also going to be, I mean, part of it, and I know that a lot of it is travel, but for the $200 more to fly, it's 2 days and 2 nights less. So, I mean, right there, I'm thinking you save that in hotels.
Well, and also too, like, because I was asking when we were talking about this, I'm like, the driving option there's more food cost, honestly, because the Entourage provides foods for some of the locations, but like the pit stops along the way when they make those pit stops, that does. So it actually is kind of comparable. They just didn't want to commit to one until we knew what the cost for the flights would be closer to the trip, which we would know going into not next school year, but the following school year.
And I know right before we left for New York, they did they dropped the price about $107 per $109 per student. It came down right before the trip.
Just to say the busing, especially to Florida, it is so taxing on those students. It took them a whole day just to recover. And so their trip there, and I'm speaking from personal experience, that next day they were just like walking zombies. They're like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Because a whole day on a bus, that is no fun for anybody.
I agree.
And I would just want to stress the importance of fundraising availability. I would have liked to have seen this New York opportunity open to a lot more students than were able to go because the fundraising options were 4 months. So I'm glad that they've started already, but I would like to see a lot more
And
options.
to Miss Lee's point, because we're looking at this now, when will that fundraising opportunity start for the students? Will that start in August of 2023 so they can start doing the fundraising?
We've already at our last booster meeting last week discussed the fundraising opportunities and like working on a plan and a calendar for when those opportunities are going to be open to the students. And we're hoping to do it as soon as maybe even this summer that they were talking about. Because the goal is to announce it at their banquet this week. So that way the kids would know and get excitement moving and then start working on those fundraising opportunities.
It's the day after tomorrow.
Yes, it is. This week, yes.
So the popcorn that they're selling now, that is not for the trip.
No, that is for marching band, winter guard stuff right now.
Okay, I just wanted to, I mean, that's what it said, but I just wanted to see if it, how do you distinguish so they know what they're fundraising for?
And also, will there be expansion of that? I mean, I remember back in the day when my oldest were younger, we had a lot of other options in addition to just selling chocolate, but you had the Yankee Candle options. You had all of those different options as well, because you can't just rely on one source.
Oh no, they've already talked about the different options. They've had a lot of success with this popcorn sales. So they're looking at doing that. They're looking at doing Domino's gift cards. They've been gathering opportunities and ideas along the way. So yeah, there's more than just one or two options. We're trying to find as many for the students as possible, and the ones that are going to get the students more of the profit back, if that makes sense.
Any additional questions from?
Yeah,
please.
I'm actually in support. If you did, so let's say Disney and New York is the absolute best trip. The students get the best result, and from the students you hear that they love it. And if you did that every single flipping other year, the only ones that it would bore the heck out of would be the chaperone parents that had to go for their, like, we're doing Disney again. But to the kids that are going through for the first time, it's their first time. It doesn't necessarily matter. But it does sound cool to go to. I mean, our daughter New Orleans, Disney, that sort of thing. That was very cool. But yes, and if you told them about the fundraiser today, I would not know about it until about 3 weeks before the trip. So yeah, please get that out as early as possible, and know that if my children were participating, they wouldn't tell me until 3 weeks. So.
All right, hearing nothing else on that, we will move to roll call, please.
Mr. Devere,
Yes?
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the proposed 2023 Panther Voices trip to Augustana College Chamber Choir Festival.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Devere,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
And motion carries.
Need a motion for the approval of the administrator and confidential employee salaries and contracts for the 2023-2024 school year as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Devere,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes. And a motion carries.
I need a motion to approve 2.0 FTE special education teachers and 2.0 FTE special education teaching assistants in the amount of $270,000, funded by the District Funds and IDEA grant.
So moved.
Second.
So,
Oh.
do we have all the motions? I'm sorry.
No, I think that was it. Motion by Ms. Larson, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Please.
Thank you. Again, this was at Finance Committee. As we heard, Pleviac is still having a increase in soaring numbers where we need to have the special education teachers and teaching assistants, which is why it's funded through the IDEA grant, and then what is not left in there will go through the district funds. The questions we had asked is making sure we had space for the additional teachers and teacher assistants, and they have assured us that we do. But again, this is due to enrollment increases.
Thank you for that. Any additional questions?
Is it enrollment increases or enrollment increases in special ed?
So this is at Pleviac. There's two. One's at Pleviac, and this is for the numbers that they had. And where's Lisa? So the increase in enrollment of people who've moved into the district.
The maximum number of students we can have in an instructional classroom is 13, and that's exactly where we're sitting. And we're recently getting move-ins, so we have absolutely no room to grow. So that's the Pleviac classroom. The other one is for the lab primary class. So this year, we have not been able to find placements for students that need more behavioral supports. So we've had to be creative and come up with our own programming, which is what we have for intermediate and secondary. So we're asking for a continuation of that, so primary lab.
Yep, part of my question was around, no, part of the questions around, is it just more focused in each one of the categories? And will it carry in terms of quantity of students potentially going into middle school and
Oh, well, we see that trend. Okay, okay.
Yeah, and that, I mean, so every year the team actually assesses that and we really look at staffing levels holistically. Like, again, we haven't really shared this, but didn't we have 18 kids exit the EL program at the high school?
Yeah, yes.
So those kids leave, that impacts the number of teachers. So it's constantly looking at like the full picture. I think the pandemic did affect some of the kids who were exiting. Well, without question, it affected exiting EL students, but it also affected some of our other student populations. So.
All right, hearing no additional comments, roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the one-year lease agreement with Old National Bank from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 in the amount of $33,879.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mrs. Klingler.
So again, this was on the finance agenda, and it was probably right before the finance meeting, we got all the language that we wanted in the lease agreement. I know Mrs. Bennett included pictures so you could see kind of the space within the bank, because again, we're only taking over a portion, not taking over, but leasing a portion of the bank. So they will get to work over the summer to get that set up. Once it is set up, we'll get a tour of what that will look like for the administration that will be housed there.
Thank you. Any additional questions for the administration? Roll call, please.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the one-year bus lease extension from July 23rd to June 24th for the amount of $1,060,918.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler.
So again, this was on the finance agenda. This is an extension again of our bus lease. Again, as you know, we lease our buses, and as you know, there's still a shortage in getting vehicles out of the auto industry, no different for buses. So we're looking to extend the lease on our current buses. The conversation or questions that were asked out of finance is keeping these buses another year. Are we reaching to the point where it's not cost effective to keep them? But remember, they did sit for at least a year, which is why we're able to do this. So we will go out this fall. Hopefully the market is better so that we can do that new fleet refresh. But this is just an extension because again, it's still cost effective to extend that lease.
Thank you for that. Roll call, please.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson? Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. And this is just administration recommends that I need a motion to approve the recommendation for the Board of Education to review the fiscal year 23 amended budget and approve the public hearing date of Monday, June 26, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by, I'm going to give this one to Mr. DeVera. Any finance?
Yes. So if you look at the attachment, it's kind of being called a rebalancing of revenue and expenditures. It's moving some of the items that we have budgeted and have expanded those monies from either Fund 10 to Fund 20 or vice versa. So it's just to moves of money. But, you know, as we discussed in finance, we don't want people to think it's kind of a shell game because we're moving money from here and there. It's just the district has evaluated those monies spent, they belong in a different bucket. It should be here. But again, we did go over making sure we're evaluating those at the time so we're not having to do it. This is the longest we've seen in a long time. So we had those conversations with administration.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
And motion carries. And that will bring us to positive occurrences. I will jump out real fast and throw out athletics banquet. The senior awards banquet was absolutely fantastic. It was great having it inside of the community, being at home, so to speak. Having everyone there, great turnout, great chance to recognize our seniors, especially this group of seniors with a lot of the challenges that they've had. It was put into perspective. I saw on Instagram one of the Round Lake soccer posts talking about this year's seniors. As freshmen, their season was cut short 2 days in. They had just started their tryouts, and then the season was killed because that's when we stopped in 2020. In 2021, they had 23 girls who showed up on the first day of tryouts. So they were challenged there their sophomore year. And then last year in their junior year, they had a brand new head coach. We had the coaching turnover at that point. And then to come out and to see what they've done this year with winning the body armor tournament, getting a number 9 seed in the regional, and they'll be playing against Hampshire in the regional down in Barrington tomorrow. And that goes for all of those athletes, no matter which sport it was, but especially those spring sports, because that 2019-2020 year, and Mr. De Vera knows it all too painfully well, losing that 2020 season was just, now it's painful, especially on the spring sports side for baseball, for track, softball, you name it. But this shows the resilience and the strength of our students, our families, our community, and to be where we're at now. So that was mine.
So I just wanted to say, we have the Regional Office of Education ceremony, and, again, congratulations to Mr. Wallner for taking home Educator of the Year. So nice to see that in the district. And then, of course, Mr. Francisco, all the banquets, and I know we have the fine arts on Wednesday, so looking forward to that. And then, of course, having us all reseated. Again, appreciate the community's faith and trust in each and one of us, and appreciate that the board gets to stay intact.
Yeah, I was excited about the Lake County Educator Award also. We just had a lot of people from Brown Lake represent, and I was proud of us. And then I got the opportunity to go to an induction at Round Lake Middle School for the National Junior Honor Society, and this is something small and little, but I just thought the way it was done was so sweet. The children helped kind of run the program and highlighted certain aspects that they thought, they needed to kind of hit, supporting community, things like that. I just thought it was a very impressive showcase for middle schoolers, so I just wanted to highlight that.
And ditto on everything everyone has said. Also, in the beginning of May was the grand finale band concert, which was really amazing. It was really great to hear how the kids have really progressed from the fall to the spring. It was great.
And the same with the grand finale choir concert, which was the week after the band. Amazing job there. And to Ms. Klingler's point, we've also got the high school NHS inductions are coming up on Thursday night, so definitely want to keep that on your calendars as well.
Just one brief thing, same bucket, but I think in the last 2 weeks I've had 3 separate districts, either board members at one was at the Lake County Educator of the Year, and 2 other superintendents say that we want to do it the way you do it, which that's awesome. I mean, that happens. I would say, again, I think I mentioned this. I think Tech Campus built their whole PD program based on Liz's structure. So we have really talented people here, and it's nice to be kind of out there and thought of that way. Even districts who you may not think would, maybe 10 years ago, would think that. So it's nice. Credit to all the people here in the room, community, the board, families.
One other thing, if I may point something out, I don't think there was a district that was represented at that Lake County event where their entire board was there. This board goes, their entire board member, all board members were represented. That is a rarity for school boards, so that's a compliment to all of you. I don't see that often.
And I'll also just throw out as well, yet again, our district showing the strength and professionalism. ISB was able to host our Lake Division meeting here on May the 4th. Again, great job, showed off the learning labs, the expansions that we've done in the high school, just got everybody to the school. Organic Life, as always, went above and beyond. So again, just great job being there, being part of it, and being available. So thank you. Anyone else? All right, so future agenda items. Anyone have one?
So since we touched on Tech Campus, the new facility in Gurnee that took the old Lowe's, I know it's open and running now. It'd be great to get a tour of that facility.
We'll get that set up for you.
Thank you.
You're talking about the Tech Campus there, not Cooper's Hawk, right?
I didn't say Cooper's Hawk, did I?
No, that was.
We can go there afterwards.
All right, hearing no additional future agenda items, we will move to approval of closed session minutes.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of February 28th, 2023, special meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Larson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
And motion carries. All right, next up, I will need a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purpose of discussing the following. Everybody hold tight. Employment matters 5 ILCS 120/2C1, real estate matters 5 ILCS 120/2C5, closed meeting minutes 5 ILCS 120/2C21, and security matters 5 ILCS 120/2C8.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
And motion carries, so we will reconvene in closed session next. For those who are, there's no one here anymore, but for those who are attending online, we will go into a pause. We will come back out of closed session into open session for actions resulting from the closed session. So if if you so desire, please stay tuned for that, and we look forward to that. If not, our next meeting will be June 26th. It will be, yeah, June 26th, and we would look forward to seeing you here in person or online. Thank you very much, and everyone have a great evening. All right, we are back in open session, and first up is action resulting from closed session.
I need a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of a notice to remedy to Ruth Ruiz Luna.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Miss Lee, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
The motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of April 19th, 2023, special board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Miss Lee. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Gonna abstain.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of the April 26th, 2023, special board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tavera, seconded by Miss Lee. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
We good? Motion carries. All right, and that will bring us to adjournment. We are adjourned on the 15th of May at 10:42 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening, and we will see you on June 26th. 26th. Thank you. Good night.